Hello, this is our retail session, and as we've indicated, retail is a really important area for the radio category. It's where people buy their radio and audio devices. It's where people go to get the information and to browse. So it remains important to us, but we're also very aware that through this year, it's been a very challenged area, and we're going to have a conversation about that and about what the future holds. And we're starting with Jack Wetherill, who's joining us today. Jack, welcome.
Thank you very much.
It's very good to see you. Jack, so much has happened this year. It's been such a challenging year. What do you see as the fundamental impact on retail?
Of the pandemic,
Yeah.
of course, you're talking of, well, of course, it's been hellish for anybody on the high street. It's so difficult to plan, to know exactly what's going to happen when your customers are going to be able to come back into stores. So it's been so difficult. Of course, that's a general retail statement. But when you think about electronics, some stores have managed to stay open. So supermarkets, for example, as deemed essential retailers because they've got food, have perhaps benefited, or should we say, suffered less than others when it comes to electrical sales. And of course, anybody who has already invested in their online retail platform and planned ahead will have benefited from that. Let's say over the last couple of years, John Lewis would be a good example, I think, where they already had their ducks in a row, if you like. So they were able to, if you like, take advantage of that in order to maximize their sales online when they couldn't sell offline.
Thanks, Jack. I mean, that you're absolutely right. You make interesting points about retail, but looking more specifically at audio in particular, what's happened during the pandemic through this year? Have sales grown? Have they declined? And and who are the winners and losers?
Yeah, well, it's been a tricky year for forecasters, that's for sure. What's happened as the year has unfolded has been very interesting. And actually, you might find this chart of interest, where we have the consumer response to audio during the pandemic. And we did a survey just with consumers just during the first lockdown. And that was during, I think, April time. And we basically, of course, people won't really buy hardware unless they've got a good reason to use it. And we asked people about what they were listening to, and we found that music streaming, if you look in green, 40% said they were listening to more music streams than they were before, with just 52% the same. Perhaps the easiest way to look at this is how many people are saying they're doing less, and it's actually very small. So in other words, music streaming is growing. People are watching more music videos on YouTube. Podcast listening is growing, and indeed radio listening is growing. So of course, what does this mean? They're using hardware for all of these activities, of course, and that doesn't necessarily translate into new hardware sales because, of course, people may already have the devices already. So when we look on the right-hand side there, the UK audio hardware markets, this is the first 3 quarters of this calendar year. The actual volume has declined a little bit, but value has grown drastically. Now, this is explained by the fact the categories that we're tracking on a quarterly basis, so we've got really granular data for, includes headphones, wireless speakers, soundbars, and all-in-one hi-fi systems, so sort of like micro systems of old. And if you put all of those together and count up the units, then it's down a bit. But if you look in terms of value, it's grown hugely. And that real value growth, yes, soundbars, average prices are growing a bit. Same with smart speakers and hi-fi systems. But that's kind of a small growth. It's actually headphones that's really making the difference here. That shift from regular headphones to true wireless in-ear headphones is making a huge difference to average prices, and that's why the value is going through the roof. So any retailers who are selling headphones, especially true wireless, should be doing good business. And indeed, it's quite nice because it's a much higher average selling price per unit.
Yeah.
So less work has to go into it.
But you'd argue even being flat as a category, during a pandemic where we've had 2 lockdowns and stores closed, is a pretty strong position.
I totally agree with you, Ford, and it's worth remembering that one of those categories is more of a legacy one. That the CD playback device is something that has been on the wane for years, of course, and that's included in here.
And Jack, if we just change gears and actually think a little bit about one part of the audio market, which is smart speakers, and talk a bit about the sort of historical growth of smart speakers, and indeed where you think that rate of growth is going, and how many smart speakers will we sell over the next few years?
Yeah, sure. So I've put some kind of numbers to years here. Of course, they're relatively new devices, aren't they? I think they first came to market, I think it was around 2015 with Amazon. Already, by the end of 2018, there were nearly 8 million in use. That will have doubled, we figure, this year to over 16 million, with around 5 million units selling this year. And as I think I mentioned earlier, by next year, we will actually see more smart speakers in use than DAB radios in home, that is. And that trajectory continues around 27 million in use by 2024. That's based on a sort of fairly a rapidly maturing, if you like, flattening line of sales, but still an upwards trajectory in terms of units as well.
Well, Jack, look, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to maybe checking with you next year and seeing just how true all that is.
But, well, let's hope so.
Again,
yeah.
Thanks again for your time, and have a very good end of the year and Christmas. Thank you.
Thanks, Ford. My pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.
As we heard from Jack, retail remains very important for the radio industry. And it's really great news to see all the retail stores open for Christmas. And retail continues to be a priority for Digital Radio UK, retail partnerships and retail education. And I'm delighted to welcome an expert, a retail expert, Kerry Marks, who's a director of Ignite UK. Kerry, welcome.
Thank you.
And we're going to talk a little bit about retail, but retail staff also, and retail education, which has been a key priority. So Kerry, you work with many different retail clients, and obviously this has been an incredibly challenging year. What's been the main impact for your retail clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a sort of field marketing agency and a digital agency, we work a lot with retail partners where we have a lot of staff that work within store as promoters and trainers. So obviously it has had a huge impact on us as an agency, the sort of movement from people shopping in store to shopping online with COVID-19. But what has happened is it has supported us with a transition to move very much to focus on digital tools. So a lot of our brands have moved very quickly. They're quite agile. And what they've done is move the investment that they had in sort of field teams into digital tools that will help them still to sell using online as their sales tool.
And you mentioned, Kerry, the shift to online sales, and I guess people are getting more and more used to that.
Yeah.
And if that continues, and do you think it will continue? And if it does, what's going to be the impact on retail stores? Are they going to disappear, do you think, over time?
I think there's absolutely going to be a change in the high street. I don't think there's any doubt that what's happened over the last 6 months will have a big impact on how retail goes forward. But I think there's always going to be a demand for a level of retail, especially the larger stores that we see. But I think what will happen is that we will see brands focus very heavily on digital tools for training and digital tools for one-to-one direct video sales, or looking at how they can absolutely capitalize on the online market as much as they were previously capitalizing on the actual sort of bricks and mortar store itself. But many of our clients are investing in digital, but they are still hopeful that over the next 12 months, we'll see the retail staff return to store, and we will still see that engagement piece happening within a retail store environment.
And what about, thanks, Kerry, and what about retail staff? I know that you spend a lot of time with them. I mean, how is this going to impact their role?
Yeah, I mean, it's been obviously very tough on the retail staff, and I think that there will be less opportunities and roles in retail for staff as, you know, we see a reduction in the high street. But many of them are looking at sort of moving over to transition their skills into digital roles. So something that's a big growth area for retail at the moment online is one-to-one video sales. So whereas you might have had a retail member of staff selling within the radio category within store, they can actually do one-to-one sales using video sales online. So many of the retail staff that are looking at, you know, their future career within this industry will be looking to digital for opportunities going forward.
Thank you. And once again, continuing on the theme of staff, I know your company, Ignite, did a retail staff audit earlier in the year, and to understand, you'd get a better sense of what their understanding of digital radio is. Can you share with us some of the key findings?
Yeah, I think for us, when speaking with the staff, it was very clear that they didn't really understand how much content was available to them for digital radio, and actually the content that all of the audio category could reach. And I think there was a big education piece that was needed there to give them that insight. I felt that, you know, looking at the results that we had, that many of the people had the idea that radio was for the older generation and not for the younger generation. And I think that was absolutely one of the key findings that came out of that. Some of the other areas that we identified was around education and knowledge. So understanding terminologies around digital radio. And that was an area that we wanted to support with education, so that when somebody is selling in the radio category, they can really show the customer how much content, you know, they will be able to access if they were to purchase a product within the audio category.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there clearly was a sort of knowledge gap with retail staff, and I think they didn't really seem to have a clear understanding of just how many stations had been launched, and as you say, how much content there was now available. Now, in response to that, your team has put together a digital radio e-learning site. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about that. How does it work?
Yeah, absolutely. So the concept behind the e-learning site was to give the retail staff a tool where they would be able to access information about digital radio and all of the amazing content that's available, that's kept up to date. So at all times, they can share that with their customers. So the e-learning site is about giving them an insight into the amazing content in digital radio, also helping them to understand the terminology based around the products. But at the same time, I think for many of the retail staff, it's also building some brand advocacy with digital radio, and also giving them a little bit of an incentive and inspiring them to want to learn and want to talk more about digital radio as a whole.
And is this something that staff actually are used to using with other brands? And how will they find out about it? And how do you get them to engage in this?
Yeah, so especially within the larger retail stores, staff are very, very used to using learning management tools. And many brands provide either a learning management system of their own for them to access. Some retail stores will have their own learning management systems where they upload the content. And some stores will just share ad hoc links to microsites or training tools or training videos. There's been a huge investment in video and e-learning tools since the move to COVID-19, because we can't get into store to be face-to-face training people. And so the staff are very used to utilizing these tools to increase their knowledge within their product category, and also for them to feel connected to the brands that they're selling and feel inspired and engaged to want to sell more.
Okay, Kerry, that sounds great. I just wondered, in terms of the reaction you're getting from your retail clients, I mean, how are they perceiving the e-learning site and the story about digital radio?
Yeah, absolutely. So they've been really impressed at the level of content that's in the site. They were excited about how engaging the website is. I think one of the things that stood out is they didn't actually understand themselves how many channels and how much content and podcasts and stations there were in digital radio. And so I think not only are they happy to sort of share that with their staff, but they're also excited about their staff being incentivized to engage with digital radio and understand and learn more, because at the end result means they're going to sell more products within their radio category for them.
Brilliant. Well, look, many thanks for taking the time to share that with you. I mean, good luck with the initiative. And I hope that you and all your retail partners have a very, very good Christmas. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ford. Appreciate it.